Today, I'm bringing you an update about our ongoing battle with Alberta's Elections Commissioner. I have some really great news, however, I still need your help. Friends, I've got some fantastic news to share with you today about my battle with Alberta's Elections Commissioner. It's been a fight for free speech. But our good news also comes with a pretty ominous insinuation, something I feel is a bit of a threat from the Elections Commissioner, Lorne Gibson. And we've also got a very heavy financial burden. But first, let's get to the good news. We won. Or at least we won this battle this time. For those of you who haven't been following my very near prosecution for writing a political book about Rachel Notley's NDP, I'll give you a brief synopsis to bring you up to speed because there's a lot going on. Now, last spring, I wrote a book critical of Alberta's then socialist NDP government called Stop Notley. It was information I felt the Alberta public needed to know at a time when it was most relevant to them. Before the election, before they voted. I used really clever lawn signs as a guerrilla marketing campaign as well as a roadside billboard to promote my book because unlike mainstream media journalists, I'm never going to get any glowing reviews in the Globe and Mail or in Maclean's magazine. And my campaign worked. My book became the most popular book on Alberta politics in 2019. It was a success by any measure, and it made all the right people mad, and that made me happy. Now let's talk about the Elections Commissioner. The year previous, Notley created a new officer in charge of political crimes and monitoring political speech called the Elections Commissioner. His name is Lorne Gibson. He's a leftist activist who sued Conservatives in his personal capacity before he was laughed out of court. He was the perfect fit for this weaponized bureaucracy tasked with censoring Notley's political enemies. First, he came after one of our billboards, to no avail. Then he came after me. I received a letter from the Elections Commissioner in April demanding that I turn over my notes and my editorial emails about the planning of my book. Gibson appointed an investigator to come after me. His name was Ken Brander. He's a former Edmonton City cop, and he wanted me to prove that my book didn't violate these new Notley elections censorship laws, even when the laws made specific exemptions for books and the marketing of books. Here's the law. It's Section 4411D of the Elections, Finances, and Contributions Act. Elections advertising means, subject to subsection 1.1, the transmission to the public by any means during an election advertising period of an advertising message that promotes or opposes a registered party or the election of a registered candidate, including an advertising message that takes a position on an issue with which a registered party or registered candidate is associated, and for greater certainty does not include the distribution of a book or the promotion of the sale of a book for no less than its commercial value if the book was planned to be made available to the public regardless of whether there was to be an election. It's pretty clear. Books and book marketing is totally off limits to these election censors, so we hired lawyers. I'd say some of the best in the business at Reynolds, Mirth, Richards, and Farmer. And with the advice and help of my lawyers, I decided to sting the stinger, as Ezra would say. I recorded my conversation with the investigator, that retired cop, Ken Brander. Now, he was friendly enough with me, and maybe that was a bit of an act to put me at ease, but he told me if I did not sit down and agree to be interrogated by the state for writing a political book that was critical of the government of the day, there would be serious consequences for me. Just listen.
Yeah, I mean, we have that, Sheila, where people don't cooperate and then they get obstruction. The offense for obstruction can be pretty severe.
Now, you can see the full story and hear my conversation with the investigator at SaveSheila.com. Now, I resisted the investigator for months with the help and advice of my legal team. And now, 7 months later, the Elections Commissioner has finally backed off, forced to follow their own elections rules. And the letter we received from the Elections Commissioner, It's one of the creepiest pieces of legal correspondence I've ever been privy to. And let me tell you, there have been a lot of legal back and forths on this file. Let's read some of it together. However, I'll attach the entire correspondence in full so you can see it and read it for yourself. Dear Michael Swanberg, that's my really great lawyer. The Office of the Elections Commissioner has received a number of complaints regarding the Stop Notley lawn signs that were placed throughout the province during the recent election. It has been alleged that the Stop Notley lawn signs may have been election advertising as described in Section 4411D of the Election Finances and Contributions Act. Now, I read you that section of the law already. It excludes books. Now, let's go down to the progress of the investigation part of the letter. April 24th, 2019, the Office of the Elections Commissioner sent the attached letter giving Sheila Gunn Reid notice of the substance of the allegations. Now, that date is just a week after Notley lost the election to Conservative Jason Kenney. Her holdover appointee at the Elections Commissioner's office was mad. Since that time, Sheila Gunn Reid has been contacted by investigators for my office by email and telephone in order to provide her a reasonable opportunity to present her views. To date, she has failed to present her views or respond in writing to various inquiries which would have assisted in clarifying this matter. Damn straight, I didn't sit down for an interrogation. This is still a free country. Anyway, the letter goes on. As a result, Sheila Gunn Reid has been notified that my investigation would proceed without her input. The findings of the investigation. It is apparent, based on the volume of complaints received by this office, that a number of people throughout Alberta believed the Stop Notley lawn signs were elections advertising. I think the moral of that one sentence there is that if enough left-wing crybabies complain about book advertising, regardless of the law, the government will then trigger an investigation that will threaten you with interrogation and fines if you don't agree to interrogations in the first place. It's an abuse of the system that the government is happy to oblige. It goes on. The perception is understandable as the Stop Notley lawn signs resemble the lawn signs used during the April election. Sheila Gunn Reid's restriction on who could obtain a Stop Notley lawn sign, when those lawn signs could be obtained, and the manner in which those lawn signs were released to the public helped fuel this perception. Excuse me? My restriction was that if you wanted a sign, you could get one from me or from Cian Bexty from the back of my Jeep or his car. That's the restriction he's talking about here. Anyway, it still goes on. Based on my investigation, there's little doubt that a degree of time, effort, research, and planning was involved in the preparation of Sheila's book. At this point, it appears likely that her book may have been available, regardless of when the 2019 Alberta provincial election might have been called. There is no evidence to suggest that the book was being sold for less than its commercial value. Signs for the purpose of promoting the sale of a book are permitted within the legislation. Let me paraphrase that for you. I was completely within the law from the beginning to the end. So we won. That's the good news. Here's the other news. It's not quite over. We won the battle, but not the war, because right in the middle of this letter, and I skipped over it just a moment ago, is one of the creepiest, most ominous, and most foreboding things you could probably hear from a government official. Gibson has a grudge against me, and he's admitting it. I encourage Sheila Gunn Reid to exercise caution in the manner in which she advertises her books during an election period. Fortunately for Sheila Gunn Reid, my office is only able to enforce the legislation as it is currently written. So even though I'm completely within the law, and we knew the law from the very beginning, and we're completely compliant, I need to be more cautious or the Elections Commissioner will come after me again. For what? And that last part too. I should feel fortunate that this petty government authoritarian is only allowed to prosecute me using the laws as they are written, that he just can't make up the laws as he sees fit to come after me. That's insane. That's a guy drunk on power and completely unfit for the position he holds. He's letting his emotions, for me, get in the way of his job. And it proves my contention that this was an NDP witch hunt from the very beginning. I said this was a partisan attack on us, and Gibson just proved me right, didn't he? And we know that Lorne Gibson, this out-of-control censor, has made specific recommendations to the Alberta government to alter the elections finance legislation so that he could prosecute me the next time around. He's going to keep coming for me, and that's fine because I'm going to keep winning. I'm not tired of winning yet. Now, here's the part where I still need your help. Gibson harassed me for months. And once he realized that I wasn't going to bend the knee and submit to his government questions about a book I wrote about the government, he wrote me an angry and weirdly personal email, and then he just skulked off. And in doing so, he saddled us with thousands upon thousands of dollars in legal bills. When we first went public in July about this harassment of me as a journalist, we had already accrued some $48,000 in legal fees. And since then, our legal bill has ballooned another $27,000, bringing the total to keep Rachel Notley's censorship bureaucracy and her politically motivated partisan investigators away from me to $75,000. That's been the price for us to defend journalistic freedom here in Alberta. I suppose it would have been cheaper to take the fines or just turn over my records, but we can't give an inch when it comes to defending freedom of the press. And speaking of defending freedom of the press, while I was being threatened with fines for not submitting to an interrogation by the government about a book I wrote, I didn't hear so much as a peep from Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, the Canadian Association of Journalists, or PEN Canada, of which I'm a member to the tune of $75 per year. All these so-called journalistic organizations claim to defend the rights of journalists to work freely and to express our opinions, but they don't mean all journalists or all opinions, do they? You know who stepped up to defend me when I needed help? It was you. It was Rebel supporters. They're the real public interest group defending the rights of journalists here in Canada, not these self-appointed heroes holding themselves luxurious galas to celebrate themselves. Now, if you can help pitch in to cover the costs of our legal bills to defend the free press in Alberta, you can do that at that website I mentioned earlier, SaveSheila.com. This was a nuisance investigation from the very beginning, spawned by numerous nuisance complaints by NDP activists and then pursued by an NDP appointee. Much like being dragged before the Human Rights Commission for hurting someone's feelings or misgendering them, the process in dealing with the complaints, in dealing with the Elections Commissioner, it's also the punishment. We get the bills as he tries to bankrupt us, and Lorne Gibson gets to walk away to censor someone else. We need your help. Please go to SaveSheila.com to see all the correspondence and to help us in our fight for freedom. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. We did it. We won, but we could not have done it without you. Alberta's out-of-control Elections Commissioner, Lorne Gibson, has called off his months-long investigation into my book, Stop Notley. Now, to see the full story, to see our back-and-forth correspondence with Gibson, to hear my recorded phone call with the investigator tasked with interrogating me, and to help cover our legal costs to keep the government away from me, go to SaveSheila.com.